moral sentiment wouldn't normally be. And he stands for nihilism, a belief in nothing. That, he stands for the idea, as Stephen Miller sort of put it, or Thucydides, if I'm going back from the Romans to the Greeks, that the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. And he's tried to create a world, not only domestically but internationally, where gangsters can thrive without any sense of internal restraint. And to me, the interesting question is, what the hell happened to us? Why do 77 million people last election took a look at Donald Trump and didn't see anything morally disqualifying? And I do not think that would have happened in America 50 years ago. I think there was a moral ruination, a loss of moral knowledge that preceded Donald Trump's arrival on the scene. And my quick story about that is, for all of American history, we had some sense of a shared moral order. There's a historian, George Marsden, I'll paraphrase what he wrote, that what gave Martin Luther King's rhetoric such force was the idea that moral law was written into the fabric of the universe, that slavery and segregation were not just wrong sometimes, they're always wrong. And over the last 50 years, in my view, we've sort of privatized morality. We said there are no shared moral values, there's no ultimate truth, but everybody gets to come up with their own values.
To each his own narrative.
Yeah, you do you. It's your truth. And if you do that, unless your name is Aristotle, you probably can't come up with your own moral philosophy. I mean, most of us can't do that. But second, we have no shared morality on which to decide what's right and wrong. And with that, just basic shared standards of how a person should behave. And there's been that loss of just assumptions of this is what a president does, this is what a president doesn't do.
But does that mean, EJ, that Trump is getting a pass on anything from racism to megalomania?
No, you put a bunch of things on the table here, and I'll begin where you ended, which is I think it's a mistake to look at Trump's election as a failure because of this complicated breakdown of any morality. I think there is still a strong moral sense among Americans, and you're seeing it in the backlash against the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. You're seeing it in a lot of backlash out there where his approval rating has taken a real pounding. There is a solid base of support of about 35% of Americans who believe that Trump is against their enemies, and they're going to be, because he opposes those whom they oppose, they will be with him. But Trump wasn't elected because all these Americans lost their moral sense. He was elected partly because of partisanship, that a lot of people who thought of themselves as Republican still preferred the Republican Donald Trump over someone like Kamala Harris, and partly because they couldn't believe that he would behave like this. And then a bunch of other Americans voted for him because they were mad about prices and disorder at the southern border and just thought from the first term, well, he'll have some folks around him who will restrain him. He wasn't quite this wild, and they are regretting that now, is what it looks like. But in terms of Trump himself, I think it does go back to something David said, which is that if you believe in yourself as in an absolute power, if you claim absolute power, that you stop surrounding yourself with people who will question you and only surround yourself with people who will say whatever you do is right. And you have the kind of, I think, deterioration we're seeing in Trump himself, then you do have somebody who can't apologize for a racist video like that and who continues to act in this way. And, there was some Republican pushback against that video, but what's really striking is Republicans are still petrified of opposing this. And what you haven't seen is enough of the center-right in the United States. David's an exception, God bless him, but enough of the center-right in politics in the United States is willing to say enough of this. And maybe that's a product of a two-party system, but it's a real problem.
And so we have a president who might have a sign behind him that says, the buck stops with the intern. Huh?
Yeah.